Oh, and look at me. I'm getting ahead of myself, and I forgot to change all this information. We're not on episode 20, we're on episode 21, I think, right? Episode 21. Let me go ahead and change that. But in the meantime, welcome everybody once again to another edition of, there we go, Learn Photography with Duck. As always, I'm your host, Duck, and it is episode 21. Um, before we uh, before we do that, I do want to. There's an update to this that I haven't done yet, but for those of you in the area, if you know any beginners, I got a couple beginner classes. What is not up here is that the PPA is hosting their twice a year. They do what are called one-day workshops. Mark, I think you're familiar with these. Is where local PPA pros will open up their studios to educational workshops in order to, teach the upcoming pros a little something, and also it's a way of earning credit points towards, like, for example, for me to maintain my professional photographer credentials, I need to accrue some credits, and this goes towards my credits. So this September, I think it's like 2 weeks worth of workshops, one-day workshops. There's 4 of us here in Connecticut that are doing workshops. If you're interested, I'm doing 2 of them. One is on Lightroom. You guys don't need that one. You guys get it for free here. And the other one is advanced studio lighting. We get into the weeds on studio lighting. So if any of you want to learn more about studio flash photography, or if you know anybody who is looking to break into studio flash and wants a good solid foundation for utilizing studio flashes, send them my way. Send them to the PPA website or the CT PPA website. I just put those up today. There's 4 workshops. 2 of them are mine. 2 of them are from other people. One's doing branding, all about branding photography, and the other one's like family portraiture. I can't remember. But anyway, that's what's going on locally. Anybody got anything they want to share? Oh, Bill, I want to publicly say thank you for sharing that little article link with me. I passed it on to Diane, and we both really liked the write-up. It was really, really nice. For those of you who do not know, Bill runs a photography group with local seniors in his area, and the local paper did a nice little write-up. So congratulations, Bill. Okay, nobody want to share anything? We're good? Okay. Let me go to, actually, let me go ahead and share my screen. Share. Where is it? Projector, share. Okay, oops. Okay. All right, so everybody can see my Lightroom? Yes, no, maybe?
See it, I see it.
Okay. All right.
I can see it.
Good. All right. So I have here, come on. 2 images. Let me blow this up. And you guys can let me know which one you want me to discuss today. I have this one here, which is basically, it changes daytime photo into a nighttime photo. Let's see. Let's go into this is what it looked like before, and this is what it looks like after the edit. So before and after. The other option for you today is a black and white conversion. This is actually a 3-shot pano that I did earlier today. Caught the torrents on this little waterfall in Seymour, for those of you familiar with the area. This is before, this is after. Before and after. So, I'm sorry?
Changing from day to night, I prefer.
Changing day to night. We have one vote for that. Anybody else?
I'll go for that. I'll vote for that too.
I'll meet you guys outside. I'll meet you guys outside.
Oh my God. You know, we got 4 people. You know, where's Bob when we need him? You know, it would be funny if 2 of you said one thing and 2 of you said the other thing. It's like, all right. All right. So this one good? This one's good? All
Yes.
right. All right. So,
Myself pouting.
I'm sorry?
I said I'll mute myself so you don't hear me pouting.
Don't worry, Bill. We'll get to the other one next week. How's that? All right. So, all right. Just to give you a little backstory, I'm going to plug Mark here for a little bit. I think I mentioned in the past that Mark is working on a photo judging platform, a web-based photo judging platform, and it's really robust. I really love the features that he's putting into it. And through my association with Mark, he's kindly invited me to be a judge a couple of times for some of the photo contests that his site has hosted, mainly most of them through his camera club that he belongs to. And there have been several themes, and I noticed that Mark tends to like certain things. He definitely loves doing the black and white conversions. And we had talked about doing a day to night conversion, and his interest got piqued. So anyway, seeing some of the work that has been put forth in some of these competitions has kind of guided me towards, you know, doing some edits that kind of target what I see there. Okay. So anyway, I figure I'd share that little backstory with you. I'm not sure it matters, but anyway, anyhow. So what I did is I did this edit here, and the one thing that impresses me still is that this edit is all done in Lightroom. It's all done in Lightroom. There is absolutely no Photoshop on this. Okay. That's how advanced the features, the tools that are available in Lightroom have become. Now, if you're not a big fan of Lightroom and you prefer doing things in Photoshop, you can do the same things in Photoshop. Okay. As a matter of fact, if you open up your raw file in Photoshop, the first place it's going to take you is into Adobe Camera Raw, which is nothing more than the develop module of Lightroom. So everything that we learned today in Lightroom, you can do in Adobe Camera Raw. And, before opening it up into Photoshop, and you can even do additional steps in Photoshop if you want. Okay. This is by no means the final end all or the only way to do this. As I've said before, when it comes to editing, there are multiple ways of getting to a result by means of several tools. Okay, so without further ado, let me go ahead and I'm going to make a copy, create a virtual copy. Okay. That way I can just go ahead and take this one and I'm just going to reset this image. Okay. All right. So there's a couple things actually.
Quick question on what you just did.
Yeah.
In this situation, does it matter if you were to reset the copy or the original? Like in this one, you made a copy and then you went back to the original, I'm guessing, and reset that.
Yeah, when you make a copy, let me go back. If memory serves, when you make a copy with edits, if you try to reset it, I can't remember. Yeah, I can't. Let's see. Oh yeah, it does. Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. Personal preference, I suppose. The nice thing about virtual copies is that you can play around with iterations. Okay, so you say, okay, I like what I did here. I don't really want to destroy anything here. I want to preserve it, but I want to continue exploring some things. So you just make a virtual copy and you play around with that. If you don't like it, you always have the previous copy to default to. Okay. So you can play around with, high contrast. You can play around with different versions of black and whites and the whole 9 yards. Okay. So what I did, of course, is I did this edit just to show you what we're doing today and what the end results are going to be. I don't want to destroy what I've done. I want to kind of keep that, even though I'm going to be reproducing it. But what I find when I reproduce it, I don't follow the exact same formula, so it may come out a little bit different. But that's okay. That's the fun. All right. Now, what I wanted to do here is I wanted to show you my camera roll, because what I did is the backstory is my wife and I were coming back from on Friday I did a ribbon cutting. No, I'm sorry. On Thursday I did a ribbon cutting. On the way back, we drove past this little cemetery and this little chapel caught my eye. And I said, oh, I need to go back and photograph that. And I said, that would be perfect for a day to night variation. And so I went out there today, and of course it's gloomy and rainy. So there was fortunately a lull in the rain earlier this morning. I went out and I grabbed these shots. And what I did is I did a series of bracketed images. All right. So each one of these steps is one stop difference. Okay. And you can see that it gets darker and darker and darker and darker. Okay. So the reason I did that is because I wanted options. I wanted options for doing a variety of different techniques. Okay, so for example, we can see, let me expand this one. This one here has really, really good, exposure in the dark areas. We got plenty of texture, but that sky is pretty blown out. Okay, there is slight texture, but it's pretty blown out. Okay, so I did an exposure so I can maintain the texture of the sky, and as you can see, everything else is underexposed. But just a little sidetrack here. I've told you guys in the past, there's a lot of power in shooting raw. Shooting raw gives you lateral ability to move laterally in your exposure beyond what the camera shows you. Okay, because remember, when you look at the back of the camera, you're looking at a compressed JPEG based on the default settings of your current exposure for that frame. The raw data carries far more information, okay? All right, what do I mean by that, okay? Let me give you an example, all right? Well, first of all, let me unstack here, okay? I'm going to minimize these down. All right, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 exposures. And this one here is probably a little bit too overexposed, okay? But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab the first, shift click, and grab the last. I want to remove the copy out of there. I don't wanna tackle the copy, okay? Everybody sees that they're all once stop difference between each exposure, okay? In the develop module, okay, I also want you to notice that when I imported these, all right, I then went and put these as Adobe Landscape, okay? By default, I believe it came Adobe Neutral, all right? I changed it to Adobe Landscape, all right? And I did that for a reason, because if you notice, one of the things that have been added is the adaptive color and the adaptive black and white. So the adaptive color, I love that tool because it does a preliminary edit to your images where it kind of balances out the exposure range, especially if there's a lot of contrast or if the exposure range is really, really wide. It'll do an initial edit so it compresses it all within the dynamic range of black and white, of light and dark, I should say. Okay. So let me just go back Pay attention. These are all one stop difference from very light to very dark. Okay. In the develop module, I'm going to click on the adaptive color, and it's going to do its little thing, and it balances it out. Okay. You can see how it balanced this out. We don't have that very, very, very bright sky anymore. Okay. So let me go back to the grid view. Notice how all the frames now look alike. There are no exposure variances. All right. However, there are subtleties. Okay. So for example, on this frame, we can see detail in the sky. This is the underexposed frame. All right, this one's the one that was exposed properly for this, or it was exposed to retain detail in the sky. Everything else went underexposed, okay? And you can see that it's grainy. There's a lot of grain here because what it's doing is the AI says, okay, we're going to balance out these extremes. We're going to raise up the shadows and drop down the highlights and things like that. And in doing so, we get noise, digital noise in the shadow areas. Whereas if we go to the one that was kind of like a little bit too bright, okay, we have no detail in the sky because, again, there wasn't very much detail there to begin with, all right? But the shadow areas has absolutely no noise because we actually dropped the exposure. Instead of raising it, we actually dropped it. So any noise, signal noise that is in those shadow areas gets minimized even more because we're taking bright shadows and we're darkening it. Okay, so this is just going over some old stuff that we've covered in the past. All right, but what I wanted to show you is that if you are doing anything with an exposure bracket, okay, do not, I repeat, do not click on any of the adaptive modes because it's just going to make them all the same. Okay. All right. However, you can take and you can analyze each one of these adaptive modes alone and say, okay, which one has a nice balance between detail in the sky? I don't know. Yeah, you guys can see that. All right. Detail in my brights and no noise in my shadows. Okay. And it just happens to be this one here that is fairly well balanced between the bright and the dark. I believe this was either a 0 exposure or a -1 exposure. I can't recall. Okay. But actually, let me go ahead and reset these back. Where's my? I'm going to set these back to landscape. There we go. Okay. And this is the one that I picked. All right. Again, it has a nice balance between the bright area because there's still, oops. Come on.
I have a question.
Yep.
Oh, it's hard for me to, when you said, I guess I never really appreciated there was an Adobe landscape. So you're saying don't use any of the adaptive ones.
Correct.
In this case, Okay, so since I didn't know what landscape does, what does that do over just the basic Adobe color?
All right, so Adobe Landscape kind of puts a little bit more emphasis on greens.
Okay.
That's all it does. All right.
So you're saying that, that you don't use the adaptive ones, but the other ones are okay for your purposes.
Well,
Is that
okay, so all of these are color profiles. A color profile is basically a roadmap that tells Lightroom, it says, okay, we have a set of numbers that comes from our raw file. All right, because if you remember, the basic principles of photography is each frame is is basically three channels, one red, one green, and one blue. Okay, and they're all gray tones. There's absolutely no color information in raw file. It's a gray tone. Okay, and what they do is they look at a single pixel, the same pixel in the red channel, in the green channel, and in the blue channel, and they determine what the differences are between each of those three, and that difference is what gives us our color information. It translates to a color. We have X amount of blue, X amount of red, and X amount of green. We mix that together, we get orange, we get blue, we get yellow. Okay. So what these profiles do is it says, okay, we're going to take those three values, and if we do a literal translation, it becomes this color. Okay. What the profile says is, okay, like for example, Adobe Landscape. Adobe Landscape says, okay, this group of colors that we normally associate as being green, when we translate it over to RGB, we're going to emphasize it a little bit. We're going to make these greens a little more vibrant. Okay? Because when we are looking at a landscape, a camera, when it photographs it, the green may be a little dull looking. So the landscape profile kind of favors the greens and gives it a little bit more oomph. Okay? Whereas a portrait profile will favor the oranges, all right, and the reds, because that's what's more prevalent in skin tones. So it'll say, okay, these skin tones that usually tend to go a little green or a little yellow, we're going to kind of coax back into the pink area. All right, these darker skin tones that kind of go into the blue or the magenta, we're going to scoot back into the browns in order to maintain those skin tones looking realistic. That's all it does. All right. Does that explain it good? Yes, Bill?
I turned off my audio to
Sorry.
not interrupt. Yes, very good. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, that was Brian, who said
Oh,
that.
oh, Brian,
Yeah.
Brian. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey, Brian, we can hardly hear you. I guess your microphone is far away from your mouth.
He's on the other side of the room.
Okay.
All right. So,
Let me check. Is that good?
oh, perfect.
good?
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Sorry, Brian. I heard, but I didn't register who spoke. Okay. So understanding that, the adaptive profiles uses AI, and it kind of looks and says, all right, this area is very hot and bright. This area is very dark and shadowy. Okay. Based on what this image is, I need to balance those out and make them a little bit more cohesive. All right. That's what the adaptive does. Now, the nice thing about the adaptive profiles is because it does handle that extreme, the balancing of the extreme exposures, is that it frees up all these sliders, all of these sliders, it frees it up to do additional manipulation without first correcting these problem areas, and the possibility of maxing out your sliders. That's the nice thing about the those adaptive profiles. But like I said, if you have a series of the same image taken at multiple bracketed exposures, it's just going to take them all and make them all look the same because they're all the same image. Okay, so if you need to maintain a bracket, don't use adaptive. Okay, so anyway, this is the frame that I decided I was going to use because it has a nice blend. All right, I could have used this one here, okay, just as easily, okay, but we have to understand where we are going in order to determine how we're going to start. Okay, so let's analyze what it takes to create a nighttime, or no, let me rephrase that. If this was a nighttime photograph, what would the characteristics be of a nighttime photograph? Well, the first thing we know about anything shot at night is that the color balance, all right, tends to go blue. All right. Especially once we get past that sunset stage. Okay. The color temperature of night skies is definitely a blue tone. Okay. So right now, if you notice, everything has a warm tone to it. So we need to manipulate the blue. Okay. The other thing, let's see. All right, let me just call this color temp. All right, because we have another one relating to color, and that's color saturation. All right, and that tends to be lower saturation. So if you ever tried looking out like your front door at night, that grass isn't vibrant green anymore. It's a dull, dark, bluish green. Okay. The saturation level gets reduced because we don't have bright light reflecting off these colors. So we're not reflecting the saturation back at us. We are basically just reflecting back a minimal amount of light. All right.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Interesting that you said at nighttime, the temperature tends to be more blue. I noticed on a cloudy day, if I'm not taking a picture of the sky, of course, if on a cloudy day, I find I have to make my pictures warmer.
Yes.
Is it the same? Are we talking the same type of thing?
It's very much the same thing. Very, very heavy cloud cover will absorb a lot of the yellow coming from light. So yeah, that's going to have an effect. Okay. All right. So color temperature, color saturation, these are two things that we need to modify within a daytime photo. Okay. The other thing that we need to be concerned with is contrast. okay? Contrast is tricky, okay? If there is a full moon, okay, full moon, you can have high contrast, all right? Have you ever been out outdoors during a full moon and look down and see your shadow? Anybody ever do that?
I haven't done that, no.
Yes.
In a full moon, a bright full moon, it will cast a shadow. Okay, it will cast a shadow at night. Okay, so
Cat Stevens sung about that.
oh yeah,
Yes.
oh yes, moon shadow, yes.
Leave it to the musician to come up with that.
Exactly. All right. And then anything less than a full moon, you're going to have low contrast. Okay. So the reason I point these out is because when you are shooting during the day, you need to be aware of what your shadows are doing in the scene that you are photographing. All right. Obviously, you don't want really extreme, hard, contrasty shadows because that just makes it even more difficult to deal with in post-processing. And then you have to somehow create the illusion that you have a full moon. All right. So it can be done, yes, but you're going to work a little bit harder to create that illusion because you got to realize again that that's not what the reality is. There is no moon there. Okay, this is not nighttime. We are faking it. Okay, low contrast scenes are a lot easier to manipulate because at that point you can put in the light pretty much wherever you want, okay, through the use of masks and levels and things like that. Okay, so keep that in mind, the contrast level when you are actually shooting. I was fortunate, we had very overcast skies today, so there were literally no shadows to deal with. And it makes it, you're going to have different moods depending on whether you have a high contrast scene or a low contrast scene. Okay. A higher contrast scene where the moon is more evident can often come across as being a little moodier than a low contrast scene, where a low contrast scene tends to be a little bit more serene, peaceful, and quiet. All right, very pastoral. All right, so just keep that in mind. Okay. And then the last thing is that we need to, well, no, not the last thing. All right. Actually, let me switch over to blue. We need to worry about our sky. Okay. Our sky needs to be darkened because we're going from a light sky to a dark sky. Okay. So the trick here, if possible, see if you can capture a frame that does not include sky. Okay. I actually did this when I shot this little chapel. This was the first shot I took. This kind of represents the scene as I saw it from the street. Okay. but I'll show you guys after I've explained all this. I'll show you the other shot that I did without sky. Okay. Because when you are masking a sky, especially in Lightroom, the edge of your mask tends to present problems. If you have a hard time dealing with that contrast edge or that mask edge, the solution is just don't shoot anything with the sky. See if you can manipulate your scene so it doesn't have sky. Okay. And then you don't have to worry about it. All right. So, but in this case, we do have sky, so we need to have the sky darkened. Okay. And it needs to have a balance between sky and foreground. Okay. It has to match. It has to match. Okay. And then the last thing that we need to do is we need to be aware that we are going to be adding light. All right. Most of the time, the light that we add is artificial light. All right. Artificial. All right. So what I tend to do is I like to look for subjects that have visible lights, you know, either a lamppost or sconces or things like that. Where it becomes a little bit more difficult is if there are plate glass windows that you want to light, because often than not, if you notice, like in this particular image, at this exposure, you can't see through the glass. It's dark. Okay. Whereas if this were an actual lit building at night with the window lights on, you would be able to see what is on the interior. Okay. So often if you are photographing like a storefront, you may need to photograph at least one frame that is so overexposed that it allows you to see what is behind the glass, and then just take the information from that to put it into your scene. And in that case, yes, you will need Photoshop. Okay. In this case, I'm not going to light the windows. Okay. If the building is a little bit farther away and you wanted to light the windows, you can kind of say, well, you know, maybe they got their shades or they got shears and you're just seeing light through the shears and you're not really seeing inside. You can get away with things like that. And I have done it in the past. But when you start getting closer and closer to the building, and when you look at it and you say, well, these windows definitely do not have shears or would not have shears, you would be able to look into the inside. Then it becomes tricky. Just use, you know, common knowledge. All right. But whatever light fixtures are available, this is referred to as practical lighting. All right. Anything that is within the scene. All right. Practical lighting. And if we can get a couple of those in our shot that we can illuminate, the better. In this case, you know, everybody, any questions about anything I wrote up here before I erase it? Okay.
I'm good.
All right. Here's the other shot that I took. I would probably use this one here for my day to night. Okay. This one here pretty much avoids the sky. All right. Yes, there is sky coming through here, but that is super easy to get rid of. Okay. Whereas something like this is a little more tricky. Okay. But I'm going to go with the tricky one just so you guys can see how I handle it, and you guys can struggle through it. All right. The final tip or trick that I would give you is that the reason I didn't write it out is because this one tends to be very subjective. Anything that is deep shadows, edges tend to kind of blend into each other. So you may have like part of these, gravestones, maybe that they kind of sort of disappear into the shadows, and you really can't quite distinguish one from the other. All right. But that can also become a problem. All right. While it can give it a certain amount of realism, the problem that it has is that on some things it becomes so difficult to read what it is that it becomes distracting. Suddenly somebody wants to see, okay, what is that big thing over there that is in deep dark shadow? All right, even though it wouldn't be in a nighttime scene. So you have to be careful that you maintain a certain separation of elements as you work through. Okay. So just keep that in the back of your head. All right. So let's get to work, shall we? Okay. So the first thing that I want to do is I normally tend to do my color temperature first. Okay. And I'm going to lower my saturation as well. Okay. Because let me bring that saturation back. Okay. If I make it too blue, it becomes unrealistic. Okay. So we have to find that compromise where shadows have a blue tone, our bright areas have a slight blue tone. We're getting away from that. See, like right here, that white is almost neutral. Okay. On the shadow side of the building, okay, you can see on the shadow side of the building, it's a definitive blue. But on the highlight, on the highlight side, it's a little bit more neutral. Okay, it's just creeping into the blue, but it's a little on the neutral side. Okay, so that's kind of what I am looking for. I don't want to go too heavy into the blue because that just now looks like Hollywood trying to fake a nighttime scene. If you've seen the old movies, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. So I tend to pull it back, and I'll waver it back and forth. I'll move my slider until it just at that precipice. Okay. All right. Once I'm there, all right, I'm going to look at the saturation of that grass. Okay. Now I don't want to bring the saturation completely down, then all of a sudden we don't have a color image. All right. We need some color saturation, but night scenes are not very vibrant. Okay. So I usually go with saturation. If you want, you can go with vibrancy. Okay. Vibrancy might be a little bit better because vibrancy tends to target the colors that are heavily saturated to begin with. Any color that is already lost a lot of saturation, it tends to ignore. Okay. But it's very easy to kind of overdo it with the vibrancy slider than with the saturation slider. Okay, that's why I usually go for, in this case, my saturation. Okay, all right. That's looking pretty well balanced. That almost looks like a night sky, or I'm sorry, a night scene, just as it is. The only thing that's giving it away is the sky. The sky does not look like a night sky or even an early evening sky. So we need to darken that down. Okay. Now, if you recall, last month we talked about sky replacement, sky selections, and things like that. I can select the sky, but what's going to happen is that we have all this area up here, all right, and then here and over here, that is going to dismiss because it's going to look at and concentrate the majority of what it recognizes as sky in this area. Okay, so it'll probably disregard this. So for that reason, my first mask is not going to be a sky mask, but it's going to be a range, luminosity range mask. Okay, luminosity range. And I'm going to go ahead and click on the bright area. Let me make this, can I make this horrendous? There we go. That's annoying, right? Is that an annoying color? Okay. You can see the influence that this has on like the steeple and the bright area of the chapel. Okay. Why? Because the luminosity range here is on the cusp of the luminosity range here. Okay. So what I need to do now is play around with my slider. All right. The inner one here, that controls my direct selection. And then this one from here to this little home plate thing, that's my feather. Okay. All right. And what I want to do is I want to feather a lot in this particular case because I want some of this feathering to go into the edge of my tree line. Okay. So we can see that we have orange here. This is the highlight reflecting off the wet pavement of the sky, reflection of the pavement. And we have this over here, which is the siding, the white siding of the chapel. Okay. We also have the bright areas of this monument here, this here, all right, and even over here. Okay. So we will need to deal with those afterwards. Okay. All right. So that's going to be our first selection. And from there, I'm going to do a subtract. All right. What I want to do is I want to subtract from that. I want to give myself a nice hard feathered edge, a fairly not too large. I want to be able to go in around here. a flow at 100%, opacity or density at 100%, and I'm just going to erase everything literally that I don't want selected. Okay, so in this case, I have a lot of erasing to do. So I can make my brush a little bit larger, okay, for all this groundwork. But in and around the church here, I will probably make it smaller so I don't inadvertently erase anything in the trees, right? Everybody see that? Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of this. Where's my pin? All right, there's my. Oof. For some reason, let's see. Alt, let's put that back here. My pen went wild on me. Sometimes it does that. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay. So that's my selection for the sky. And now what I want to do is I just want to drop that down. Okay, and I can use my exposure. All right. Now what I want to do is I want to really darken that down, but I don't want to kill the texture in the sky. All right. So this is going to become a little bit tricky. Okay. Where we're going to need to find a balance between the darks and the lights. All right. So in this case, the lights is going to be, we're going to assume this is what is being lit by a moon. Okay. So it can't be overly bright. Okay. It can't be, you know, like really blazing, you know, bright, contrasty skies like that. Okay. It needs to be a little bit more on the subtle side. All right. And then the other thing that I need to be concerned with is how it looks around the edges. All right. You can see here how it's starting to look really funky. We're going to deal with that in a little bit. Okay. All right. We're going to go back to our brush. We're going to change this feather. I'm going to feather it 100%. And this time I'm going to bring the flow down to about 25% or so. Okay. And I don't want to subtract. Sorry. I did the wrong thing. I want to add to my mask. Okay, add brush, nice soft feather, low flow. Okay, I'm going to keep the density up high though. Okay, and I'm just going to very casually, very briefly, just kind of touch around those edges. All right, what I'm doing is I'm pushing the edge of the trees into silhouette. All right, because again, the tops of these trees are not being lit by a sun. Okay, if anything, they're being lit by a moon, and that intensity is going to be a lot darker. Okay, everybody see that? All right, and then we can play around with our black slider. Okay, so what I'm looking at now, all right, and this is, excuse me, this is what you would call salt and pepper to shake, all right? I am looking at these two values. All right, this value here and this value here. All right, and if you do the squint test, you're going to see that they're very, very similar. All right, very similar. I don't want this to be too dark because then it makes this area very, very light, and vice versa. I want the chapel to be the focus of attention. And what's one of the rules? Our eye goes to whatever is brightest in the image. And in this case, you know, it's our little church here. Okay. All right. That's looking a little bit better. All right. That looks good. Okay. I'll probably end up doing a little bit more work here. All right. So for example, let me take a linear gradient and I'm just going to put it from the bottom up. Come on. And I'm just going to drop the exposure down just a touch. All right. About a stop and a half. All right. And you can see what that does is it just kind of darkens that lower section. Okay. All right. Let me rename these. Sky. And foreground vignette. Okay. All right. Let's add some lights, shall we? Actually, let's see. Before we do that, let me see if I can bring some of the detail in these headstones. Okay. And this is where understanding your sliders plays an important role. Or if you want to get a little bit more advanced, this is where understanding zone systems comes into play. Okay. Understanding what the zones are will allow you to really just kind of play around with this. All right. So let's do this. Let's do another luminance range. All right, and what I want to do is I want to click on, let's see, one of these headstones. And what I want to do is I want to see if I can just limit that to like the extreme bright areas of these headstones. Okay, and we're getting parts of the chapel. That's okay. I want to just kind of sort of punch the headstones a little bit. All right. All right. I'm going to go ahead and let's go and we're going to subtract a brush. Hard round, we'll make it soft. We're going to bring the flow 100%. I'm going to go ahead and remove the chapel from this. I just want the heads, the the headstones. Okay. And if we need to, we can zoom in. Actually, all this can go. All right, definitely this side because this is the dark side, or what would be the shadow side of the chapel anyway. Okay. All right. And if I need to bring that back, all I got to do is press the Alt or Option key and bring back whatever got erased. Oops. There, just like that, okay? All right, and you know what? I don't want the edges of the tree, so I'm going to go ahead and let's make that really, really big and bold. Let's get rid of all that up there, there. Actually, all of this in the trees we'll get rid of. Because like I said, I just kind of want the headstones. I don't need any of that stuff in the background. All right. That's looking, oops. What do I do? There we go. Okay. And we're going to take our exposure and we're just going to bring that up. Oh, yeah, I don't like this. Let's get rid of all of that. Okay. Highlights. Yeah, there we go. All right. Or exposure. Exposure, if you notice, a little tiny push kind of becomes a little bit too much. All right. So I'm not going to use the exposure. I'm going to go to my highlights. Notice if I go all the way, all right, it doesn't blow it out. So I'm just going to toggle it. I tend to kind of go max and then bring it back until I get to that point where just before, after. All right, just a little touch, little separation. Okay. All right. Let's add some lights. Let's add some lights. All right. This is highlights. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and zoom into the building here. This building, because it's small, only has 2 lights. 2 practical lights, let's put it that way. There's a flood lamp here with 2 bulbs. And this one here, which I am assuming is probably for the fire department, because if you notice, there's also a bullhorn here or alarm. Okay, so it's fire alarm, burglar alarm. I don't know, but there's a red strobe, red like police light there, bubblegum light. Okay. All right. Now, if we view the full image, that red lamp barely visible. Okay, so we need to do something with that. And then the tricky part is the flood lamps. Okay, we want to make it look realistic. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is the first thing I often do is I'm going to go ahead and create a radial, not linear, come on, radial, all right. Oh, okay. Now a radial filter, or I'm sorry, a radial gradient has 2 lines. Okay. The center point applies the effect 100%. When it comes to this middle ring, that becomes the 50% transition of the feather. Okay. Or not, no, not really. It starts the feather transition. Okay. And it starts transitioning across from that point to this outer ring. And you can see that just a little bit beyond it, the softer the ring, or the smaller the ring, the softer that transition. the bigger that ring, the harder that transition, all right, until we get it. So when both rings match, it's going to be a hard transition, all right? So this is what that looks like, just so you can see, okay? As soon as I start pulling it in, you can see how it transitions, becomes softer and softer and softer, okay? Until we got that, all right? So what we're going to do is we're going to use that effect to create a pin light. Okay, so in this case, we're going to make this very, very, very small. We're going to bring this up, make this a little bit larger. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to place this right over that, where that bulb is. Okay, because right now that bulb is off, and I literally want to make it so it looks like it's on. Okay, let's go to 200%. Let's go to 300%. That way you guys can see. Okay, I'm gonna make it match. All right, and then I want to add yellow. All right, so we can do a couple of things. All right, well, as you can see, I've increased my exposure. Okay, I maxed it out, and that looks like what you might call a properly exposed light. Okay, meaning that you can see some detail in it. Okay, obviously, we're going to be adding to this. Okay, but we can take the shadows and we can bring it up, and we can take our blacks and we can bring it up. Okay, and now you can see that that looks like it's a lit white light. We want to add mood. We want to add a little ambiance. So we want to make that light yellow. All right. So we can take our color temperature, all right, and bring it down. But because it's very, very bright, you're not going to see too much of a color shift there. Okay. We can enhance it by going to this little, where it says color, the little color square. All right. And we have some presets. We have 2 cool tones and we have 3 warm tones, okay? And we can click on any of those to see if it does anything, okay? And it does a little bit on this really, really bright one, okay? And then if we want, we can really move it into the yellow, okay? So there's one, okay? And what I want to do is I want to take that, all right, and I want to duplicate that radial gradient 1. Okay, I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to bring it over. I'm going to squash it, and I'm going to rotate it for that second light bulb. Okay, and I might even make that inner part small. Okay, because we're looking at the side of the light bulb, this one isn't as critical, but we want some indicator that there's a light there. Okay. All right. Let's make it fit. All right. And just like that, we have 2 lights on. Okay. The lights are on, but we're not seeing the effect of the lights. So let's go ahead and add our effect. All right. And for this, we want some kind of fall off. All right. So these lights are pointing out towards the grass, but because they're flat, all right, some of that will hit the building. So we need to kind of sort of in our mind figure out where is it hitting. Well, it's not going to hit behind the light. Okay, so we can't go ahead and scrap that. And it's probably not going to hit directly underneath here because it's still behind the light. Okay, we're going to probably get some fall off right about maybe about here. Okay, so maybe one for that light and one for this light. Now I can get very technical and create two, but we probably don't need to get that surgical. We can probably get away with just having like one. All right. And of course, every time you have a hard light, because this is really not diffused with anything, it's just a bare bulb, you're going to have a hot spot on whatever the light is illuminating, and then from there you're going to have some fall off. Okay, so because the light is hitting out there, I am going to assume that the brighter part is going to hit lower on this overhang. Okay, and that light is going to stop right here. Okay, because we have this triangle here that we're going to illuminate. Okay, so we're going to probably have a hot spot somewhere right here, and then we're going to have fall off from there. Everybody follow that? Okay. All right, so what can we use? What can we use? Well, we can use a, let me mark this, bulbs. All right, we're going to take a radial gradient, okay, and we're going to create, let me go to 200% here. We have some fall off, right? And we want, because the fall off shape, is like this, okay? We see that when we do an ellipse, we have that kind of conical shape, right? So we're going to utilize that as our guide. All right, let me back this up. Okay, make this maybe a little bit wider. Okay. And now we need to illuminate the wall, all right? And we're going to add some light, okay? How much light? Well, that's where we're going to play around with sliders. But we also need to add color. We want a nice yellow light. So I'm going to go ahead and see if this will, the temp will do anything. Not really much. Let's go ahead and add yellow with our color. There we go. Now we get a yellow light. Okay. All right. And if we want, we can maybe even remove some green from that. All right. And we don't want it hitting the lower part. Remember, this is an overhang. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and subtract a brush. Okay. We're going to have literally a hard round brush. Flow at 100%, density at 100%. And I'm just going to come across here. All right. The other thing you can do, all right, is you can subtract brush, butt it up against, click, shift, hold the shift key and click there, and it's going to draw a straight line. And then you just remove everything else. Okay. Now, the nice thing about this is we can play around with the brightness. All right. I want to make it look like it's illuminating, but not overly, whatchamacallit, it's not overly bright. okay? Because we're going to add a hotspot, all right? I don't want the whole thing to be a hotspot. I want just a hotspot right at the very bottom edge, okay? So we'll add that in a little bit. Okay, so now the other nice thing, we can go to our gradient and we can play around and see how soft we want that edge diffusion to be, all right? This is a spotlight, so it's going to be a little on the hard side, okay? But we don't want it to be too hard. Okay, and look at that. How's that look? Pretty realistic, right? Okay. You might even say maybe we need to lower it away from those bulbs a little bit more, okay? Maybe it needs to be a little bit more pointed, okay? All right, and because I enlarged it, now we went beyond where I did my subtract, so I go to that subtract brush right up here, subtract, okay, you can see it, okay, and I'm going to remove the rest of that around there, okay? All right. That's part one. Part two is we need to add a little bit light in here, okay? Because that is still on the inside. There would still be light, even if it's just reflected light, going in on the underside of that eaves, right? But because this part here is above the light, it's going to be less, all right? Well, here is going to be more because it's below the lights. So we need to create a gradient, all right? Everybody get that?
Doc,
Yeah,
can I play wet blanket?
sure.
Or judge? Judge? When you first opened this up, when we first started the program,
Yep.
I thought that light didn't fit. Here's the reason.
Okay.
Got it fading off on the wall, so there's a dark area there, but as soon as it turns the corner, that whole area was lit. That, to me, brought in that if the light was shining and can illuminate the area you're talking about now, it could also be illuminating that little shadow area on the right and left where it fell off. All right.
All right.
Got a hard line for the colors, and I would think that there wouldn't be that kind of hard line from that kind of light.
Here?
See what I can you see where my finger's pointing? No, you've got that dark area, so it looks like in between, let's say, the light and the lightened area of the overhang, there's a dark shadow, or there's a shadow area.
Oh, right in here.
The whole, yeah, from that, it didn't seem like that would fit right. And I guess the other thing, when you mentioned that, we used to have a light like this in our backyard because we grew up in a really old house. It was a floodlight, not a spotlight.
Okay.
It's a whole kind of illumination, but
Right.
study.
Okay. Okay. Well,
See,
good.
right
That's
there
a
was more realistic than adding the shadow on the underhang.
that's
I mean, adding the light.
that no, that's fine. That's a good point. Okay, because there would be a lot of reflection going on there. All right. So let's do this. Okay. I'm going to turn off the bulbs and I'm going to turn off, this is cast light number 1. Okay. All right. I'm going to turn that one off. And I'm going to create a new one. I'm just going to use a brush. Okay, and I'm just going to paint this whole triangle. All right. Let's give it some exposure. Okay, and then I'm just going to subtract anywhere where it shouldn't be lit. Okay, so all along here. Oops. Come on. Shift click. Oops. Shift click. And shift click. All right. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's I did too much. Shift. Oh, come on. Shift. My pen's going wacko again. Why it does this every once in a while, I'll never understand. All right. Let's just go to erase. Shift. Okay. And we want to keep the light under the eaves there. I accidentally removed it last time. Okay. All right. So that part, let's make it yellow. Okay. You're saying that whole thing should be lit up, and you are absolutely right. Okay. To make it more realistic, let us add light. Okay. And, oh, that might be a little bit too yellow. There we go. Okay. Now let's turn on our bulbs. Let's turn on our cast light. Okay. And then, what do we call this one? Ambient, just to name it something. Okay. Or reflect, actually, that would all be the reflective, right? Because it's bouncing off all the interior parts. Okay. So now it's just a matter of finding that balance. Okay. So maybe I don't move the exposure, I just take my shadows. Okay. Or maybe I just move my blacks up. Okay. And remove everything there without really affecting the lighter tones. Okay. Because again, remember, we are taking, we can pull and we can push with these sliders. All right. So I'm pulling the blacks out, but it's also pushing everything else into the light. Okay. All right. Maybe not too much. Okay. And then we go to the cast light, and maybe we can open up the shadows a little bit more. Actually, the shadows be a little bit more contrasty in this area than in those areas. Okay, how's that? Looks a little more realistic. Maybe not so yellow. I got a feeling that maybe not so yellow. Okay. All right. Now we need to add light to the bottom part of that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is create another with a brush. All right, I'm going to go click. Come on. Brush. Click. Shift click. There we go. And then the areas that I don't want, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to click on the erase here. Nice hard edge. And I'm going to shift click, and then basically I want to keep it to that rectangle underneath. Now we're going to press and hold the Alt or Option key. That's going to change this from add and subtract to intersect, okay? And we're going to intersect it with a linear gradient. And I'm just going to bring that up so that it kind of sort of disappears just above that light. And we're going to bring up the exposure. Let's create orange. There we go. Maybe not so orange. Okay. All right. Does that look a little bit more natural?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. You got the eye. Look at you, man. Look at you. Okay. All right. So
A few minutes before I pick up my other point.
what's the other point?
Another issue we haven't gotten to. It's another thing. Well, I'll bring it up now. When you first opened that, after I looked at the lights, it took me a couple of minutes to figure out what that red thing was up there.
Oh,
I never did figure it out, and then I noticed when you were also playing with some of the adaptive color things,
yeah.
that red in one of them it disappeared.
Yes. Yes. Because it placed red lower on the predominant scale than
So if it were me, I would get rid of it because it took all my time to figure out what it was, and I never did figure it out until you blew it up.
yeah. See, I kind of like that little light. All right, that's why I enhanced it when I did this one here. Let's get out of there. See, I enhanced it. See how it really, really pops out red now?
Well, because I'm looking at it on your Zoom screen, but to me, I'm going back to, I know what it is now, but I'm still going, what is that? Red
Yeah.
light?
But you know what? But see, this is one of those things where, you know, everything is subjective. You look at it as an annoyance, so you know what? You might go ahead and say, okay, I'm just going to take this. I'm going to go ahead and remove it. Okay, and just like that, it's gone. You know, personal preference.
A quick question about what you just did there, because I've done that before. Suppose you do that and you go make some other things and you go, you know, I want that back.
Yep. You just go to where it was and just delete it. Delete the
Okay.
yeah. Okay. All right. So going back to our masks. All right. So this one here is the eaves. Okay. And I'm also going to use that to add another layer of brightness to which one to this here. I'm just going to add a little bit. Oh, let's use a soft feather. Okay. And I'm just going to add a little bit of a hotspot right at the base. Okay. And then make sure that anything that goes over gets kind of erased. All right. So now it looks like we have that hotspot right at the bottom where it's catching that edge of the eaves there. Okay. All right. Now we're going to do something very similar. This time we got to do it to the posts. okay? Because the posts, especially the bottom of the posts, they're going to probably catch a little bit more of that light, but because of fall off, you know, we're going to have a little bit less light along the bottom, okay? So we're going to go with a brush. I'm going to go with a hard round brush. I'm going to make my size about the width of the column, okay? And I'm going to click at the top. I hate this pen sometimes. Okay, let's try that again. Brush. Let me do this manually. Oh, brush. There we go. Click. Shift click. Good. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other side. I'm going to click and then shift click at the bottom. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to my erase. All right. This part I want a lot of feather. Okay. And I want less flow. Okay. I want to be able to really, really control it because we're going to do a little bit of like mask painting. Okay. So instead of making one pass and it erases a lot, it's going to erase less and less. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to give the right side, which is the side away from the light. So it'd be like the dark side of the columns. I'm going to start erasing away from there. All right, let's boost up the flow a little bit. Okay. I'm going to soften the edges around where the top is, and I'm just going to go down, soften that edge. Okay. All right. And now it becomes a little bit difficult to see because I'm just working with my mask overlay because I have not applied anything. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my exposure up, and I'm going to bring it up a significant amount. All right. And again, I want to color the light. Let's color that light. All right. It's not really coloring it very much. Okay. All right. And I'm just going to just work along that edge. All right. And then towards the bottom, I'm really going to remove a lot of that. All right. Because I just want kind of hitting the edge of that post. Okay. And of course, we have to kind of think 3D because we're looking at a two-dimensional object that we're painting on, but we have to really understand, okay, this is a three-dimensional object. Where would that light be hitting? Okay. So like, for example, on this side, it'll be hitting that visual front of that post a lot more than the post on the right. The left post probably has a little bit more light. So I'm not going to remove as much. Okay. I need to really, let's go where it hits the headstone. I need to remove that. Okay. But everything else, all right. And it's very, very bright. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that brightness down so we can start seeing some of that yellow. Okay. And then we can turn the eyeballs on and off, on and off. Okay, maybe a little bit more up here. Okay, everybody see that? And then the last thing is where the light hits down on the ground. We need some kind of light hit there. All right, so this one here, we'll call this posts. Okay, and then for this one, we're going to do a radial gradient because it's a circular pool of light that is sitting underneath here. Okay, and we're going to go directly under and in front of that church, the chapel. Okay, and it's the angle or the thinness of the radius is going to be, think of it as you have a round circle and you're laying it down in perspective to your scene. All right, so you want to kind of match the perspective of your scene. All right, and I'm going to shift the angle just a little bit. So I bring this part down and right about there. Okay, again, we're seeing the mask. Let's apply, and we'll colorize it with, oh, that's too yellow. That looks good. All right, and let's soften that edge a lot. There we go. Okay, now, and maybe brighten it up. Now, the thing is, we can move this around. And even though it's going in front of these gravestones, what I want you to do is pay attention to the area in between and kind of visualize where would that light be hitting. Okay. Maybe you'll be hitting more like this. Okay. So we got a little light play here, a little light play here. We need to erase everything else. So we are going to subtract a brush, okay? And because the edges of our gravestones are hard edges, I'm gonna no feather, flow at 100%. And I'm just going to go ahead and paint along this edge, paint along this edge, paint along this edge here, and paint along this edge. All right. Make my brush a little bit bigger and go ahead and scrub out everything else. Okay. Now, as you manipulate this, oh, I removed too much. There we go. Now, as you manipulate this, you can make it, however way you want it. We can reduce the shadows, reduce the black point if you want a little bit of contrast. All right, so maybe it's hitting the top part of the grass, not quite the foreground parts of the grass. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and zoom out. Turn that off. Okay, and now we have cast light on the floor, on the posts, all up in there. Okay. And maybe we'll add a little bit of contrast. Bring up our highlights just a touch. Maybe boost our shadows. Bring our highlights back down. Bring our whites And voila. Oh, I want to take that foreground vignette. I want to darken that up a little bit more. Maybe bring this up a little bit and touch that down just a touch. There we go. Any questions? We have a bright spot there. That's our sky. Let's show our that's our brush, right? What is it? Our brush. That's not that brush. There we go. There we go. There we go. Bring the flow up, bring the making some small corrections in our mask. And that should do it. And there we have before. Oh, I forgot one. The one that we were talking about, Bill. Your come on. Your favorite little light right here. All right. Add another radial gradient. Going to add a circle right there. We're just going to bring the exposure up. Make that pop out against that dark background. And voila.
Oh,
All right, questions, comments, oh, you know what? Okay. Anybody see anything weird? I see a couple of things.
we're on the far right.
Right, yes. That really pulls the eye, doesn't it? Okay, we need to burn that down. All right, so let's do, let's make this, let's see, red light. All right, this is ground light. All right, we'll add one more, radial gradient. We'll bring that up and we'll take the highlights and the whites. There we go. Now we don't pull so hard. Okay. You might argue that this one, kind of, sort of, actually that we have a weird mask going on there. Let's see, what mask is that? Okay, so see this funky edge right there? There's something going on. All right. When you find yourself in a situation like that, okay, you can, if you notice, if you hover over, all right, this one, this is the mask. All right. As soon as you click on that pin, it highlights what mask it is. All right. And then we can just go to the brush and we can say, okay, we need to remove that edge. There we go. And all cleaned up. All right, gentlemen. Comments, questions, concerns?
That was good. That was good.
Hopefully it gives you a new set of tools in your tool bag. All right. What was the artist, Robert Kincaid? What was his first name? I think it was Robert Kincaid. They called him the painter of light. He used to paint all those like pastoral cottage scenes, and with these yellow glowing window light that just washed the landscape with this gorgeous light. Keep him in mind when you do this kind of work, because it really allows you to get really creative, you know. Now, I could get a little bit more creative and put maybe a little bit of wash on the bottom parts of the door. But, you know, I didn't want to go too crazy. Okay. But anyway, here you guys go. Questions?
Likewise.
I have two final comments. Doug.
Sure.
I like the way that the light, the way you put it there and hid it behind the gravestone. When you were doing that, I like that.
Yep.
There's no other way to say
And
it.
then the other thing, that's just a joke commentary. Maybe that red light had a different purpose way back when.
Yeah.
Got a funeral.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? You know, this is an old cemetery, of course, you know, nobody resides at the cemetery to keep watch over it. So it's probably some kind of alarm. That's my guess, because there's a bullhorn stuck up in the corner. You know, if you zoom in, you'll see that there's that bullhorn right up there. Okay. Oh, and there is a little bit of light coming through there, so there might be even an interior light somewhere. But anyway, you guys have fun. Knock yourself out. Okay. Now,
Say thanks because I have to dump off, Doc. Thanks. It was a great one.
all right, my pleasure. My pleasure, guys. Okay. Next week we'll do the black and white conversion of the false. Okay. So thank you very much. If nobody has any last minute questions, we'll sign off and we'll see you all next week.
Bye-bye.
All right. What was that, Mark?
Very nice. Thank you.
All righty, sir. I want to see this being put into use on your upcoming image submissions.
I've got no problem in saying that'll happen.
Good. Looking forward to it. All right. You guys have a good one. We'll see you all.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.